Welcome class, this is Antonio Tirante, your instructor for American National Government. Welcome to our fourth week of class. 2 weeks left and we're done. So like I said last week, let's keep the momentum going and continue to improve. I would like to recognize everybody for improving on responding to me in the discussion forums. Very well done. I can tell that the discussions are going a whole lot more smoothly, and I feel the extra effort that everybody's putting into it. So I appreciate that, and congratulations on it as well. A quick debrief on our week 2 written assignments. Very good topics that everybody chose. Amongst them was the Affordable Care Act, which was the #1 topic that people discussed. Other students discussed legalized marijuana use, the contradiction between the federal government policy and state policies, and how it's evolving, as well as gay marriage. One student didn't go into that, and it was a nice, interesting read, and I appreciate that student for going out on the limb on that one. Last but not least, a couple students also wrote about the minimum drinking age and how the federal government made it a mandate to raise the drinking age in order to receive highway funding. Very good topics, very interesting reads, and I appreciate the effort that everybody put into their papers. A couple comments. Some students, though, unfortunately missed the question prompt about federalism, which was supposed to be the main focus of the assignment. The federalism, in a nutshell, should have discussed the tension between state or local government policy versus what the federal policy was, and how the three levels of government could interplay amongst each other. So a few students missed the federalism question prompt, and that affected their score adversely. Also, some students are still having trouble with citations. You cannot get credit for references that you cite to if you don't use them in text. So unfortunately, some students have to take a hit on their score because of that as well. A couple statistics. The high score was a 7.77 out of a total 9, and the low was a score below 5 points. So again, good job guys on everybody putting some effort into this week 2 written assignment. Please read those comments so that you can improve upon the things that I commented on for your final paper. I would hate to see that I provided comments to you to improve certain things like correcting your in-text citation format or correcting your APA paper format, and not to see that done for the final paper and to see you lose some points again after I tried to help you out on that. So take a look at your comments in Waypoint for your week 2 assignments. This week, week 4 discussions. On our second discussion, we're going to ask you to choose an article from a list of articles that we've provided you, and to give a summary of how that article is going to apply for your final paper, and also for you to compose a draft thesis, which should track to what the grading rubric shows in Waypoint for the final paper. This is kind of your stepping stone to get started on your final paper, so I'm going to encourage everybody to take some time in carefully choosing your article for this discussion. And specifically, a few points to keep in mind as you do this discussion and your initial post. Be careful to choose an article that reflects specifically how U.S. citizenship versus non-citizenship impacts whether or not you can receive the right of habeas corpus. And namely, I'm pointing you to the Boumediene case that's referenced in your final paper. Boumediene is one of the cases that addresses specifically how citizenship may or may not affect whether or not habeas corpus can be suspended if you were detained as an enemy combatant in the war on terror. Make sure that your paper addresses that, or your discussion discusses that. Secondly, try and pick an article that addresses how the 3 major branches of our national government have a unique perspective on whether or not habeas corpus can be suspended for detainees in the war on terror. This tracks specifically to something in the grading rubric for your final paper, so it would be very beneficial for you to go ahead and pick an article at this point that addresses that in some way, shape, or form, so you can already be working on that aspect of your final paper. So with that, again, make sure that you use the article that you use in this discussion forum, so you don't waste time and you can actually leverage that for your final paper. In past classes, I've noticed some students to go ahead and do some great work and research and analysis on their article, and it doesn't appear in their final paper. So really take the time to choose one carefully. And secondarily, you may want to also choose one that can craft the umbrella of your thesis. There's two ways to go about doing your thesis. You can go the formulaic route and really just list down, this paper will X, Y, Z, talk about the question prompts on the grading rubric, or you can be more unique and craft something that's creative and maybe has a unique perspective on something, but still covers all the topics that are in the grading rubric. So, of course, the safer one is the formulaic one, and when I read a formulaic thesis, despite what people may think, I know right off the bat that the paper knows what questions they're supposed to answer, and I'm going to track and be able to see in their paper that they go one by one and address those subtopics. So I'm not telling you to go one way or the other, but just be mindful of which one usually sets you off on the right track and ensures that your paper is going to be responsive. Okay, the other discussion, which is discussion 1 of this week 4, is going to be about judicial review. There are two major question prompts that are presented. Don't do both, unless you're enterprising enough that you want to do both. You're only required to do one of them. One of the things, though, I do want to point out, sometimes students are confusing judicial philosophy with judicial review, when in fact judicial review is certainly a concept, but the philosophies that we're really talking about are one of two: either judicial activism or judicial restraint. And those two types of philosophies are discussed in our assigned readings. So please, excuse me, make sure that you understand the definitions of those two, and answer your question, answer this discussion with that in mind. So with that, I hope that you find our discussion forums helpful and engaging for you guys. I certainly do, and I appreciate the effort and the improved effort specifically that everybody is shown in the forums. If you have any questions about these discussions and the final paper, please feel free to email me, or use the Ask Your Instructor link in our classroom so that everybody can share in the response that I give you. Look forward to see you guys in discussion. Thanks a lot for all your effort.